Oh, God, I've just got this text in here. Duncan, I used to know a consultant. He was on $200 per hour. Do you know what? In Wellington, that's nothing. $200 is cheap. Some of these guys in these consultancies are getting $1,000 an hour. That's why the government spent so much in that last term. And what did you get for it? Nothing. And it's totally different to the ordinary workers who are all looking for a second job. This is some data out of Robert Half today, the consultancy group around employment. And they have said that nearly half of New Zealanders are considering looking and getting a second job because they can't afford life as it is. So that comes with all sorts of considerations, getting a second job. What does it mean for your first job? Can you get a second job? In terms of, are you allowed to? Would your primary employer allow that? Will it have an impact on there? And what about their home life and work-life balance and all sorts of things? So it just shows that the squeeze is on, doesn't it? It just shows that first salary isn't enough. And maybe it's a question to the first boss, hey, mate, any chance of a pay rise? Because I'm having to go over here. And I can't imagine that having a second job, if we all got well, I've got 2 jobs at the moment. It's killing me. But if we 3 jobs, if we did this as a group, as big groups of people, what sort of price would it come? Would it be socially? You know, what sort of relationship would our kids have with us? I mean, for instance, I used to always see my son in the afternoons for the last 3 weeks because of this, and also my podcasting. I don't see my son in the afternoons now. He's running wild somewhere over at the mall, I think, right now with my card, with my FBOS card. I stupidly gave him the card rather than the limited cash. He said, "How much is on there?" And I said, "Far too much for you to deal with." And so he's over there now. I'm sure the mates are there, and you know. But this is the price of a second job. He's there, I'm here. So who knows? Probably picked up vaping in the last hour or something. I don't know. He did not have. So we'll have a chat very, very shortly to Megan Alexander, Managing Director at Robert Half, with New Zealanders considering getting a second job, half of us. And David Seymour after 5:30, the Associate Education Minister. Boy, he's giving it the 1-2 to the unions, isn't he? So not only does he, well, the best bit of today is hearing that the teacher-only days can no longer be during term time. You know how frustrating it is when you come back from 2 weeks holiday. Oh, there's another day off, a teacher-only day. And you just go, boy, these guys are completely out of touch with the real world because we don't have 15 weeks leave a year. We get 4 if you're lucky. We get 5 if you're really lucky. But we don't get 15 weeks. How are we meant to for that extra day in there? That's almost a whole week of teacher-only days. So take them in your own time, says Seymour. He's going to run into trouble with the unions on that one. These are hard fought from the unions and the ministry and so forth during negotiations. And Seymour said, right, don't care, blow it up. I think it's great. It's going to cause all sorts of fuss, isn't it? So the economic scene, the inflation and cost of living has really put pressure on New Zealand families. So much so that nearly half of New Zealand workers are considering getting a second job. This is a survey up from Robert Half, and the managing director there is Megan Alexander. Megan, g'day. Good afternoon. Nice to have you on the program.
Hi, Duncan. How are you? Good. How are you today?
Yeah, really good. Oh, this is the first of 2 jobs today. The other job's at 7:00 tonight. So I mean, this is I'm living what we're about to talk about, which is this is a reality now, isn't it, across the board?
It is fast becoming one for many people. Yes.
What does your research tell you? Why and what's sort of the consequences of it?
Look, I think a lot of people are starting to feel the pinch, have been feeling the pinch for some time now. And so, you know, there's no quick fix here. And so a lot of people, about 42% of those surveyed, said it was the reason that they would get a second job was to meet their financial needs. And another 32% felt that they might do that just to provide some extra funds for their discretionary spending. So they might be meeting their needs, but then have got no time for fun. So, you know, that second income can help bridge those gaps.
And I also wonder if the other person in the house, the husband or the wife, whoever's doing the 2 jobs, I wonder if the other person is just, temporarily or whatever, out of work because they've been laid off or whatever and taking time to get back in the market, which can happen. So, the main income and the only income worker takes on another job just to make sure everyone can get by.
Yeah, and look, a small percentage, about 10% of people actually were looking at a second job as a backup option in case of a layoff. All right, so it's obviously job stability is obviously on people's minds, and so rather than having no income, they're picking up that second job in case it's happening, and certainly that would be, those workers that are working in industries that are perhaps more prone to recessionary type effect.
What's the impact for this for the person who is looking for the second job? How do you broach this with your primary employer, who's obviously paying you to do 40 hours, whatever you are there, and you have to go above and beyond that? It sort of raises the question, well, mate, you're not paying me enough, so I'm having to go over here. Now, they may not like you going over there. Can they stop you?
Interestingly, they can. So it comes back to what's in your contract, and it's a really good point. If any employee is thinking about this, they should be having an upfront discussion with their primary employer. They should also look at their contract and understand if they've got any restraints of trade, or there are clauses in contracts around disclosing a second job. So they should be very wary of that. Interestingly enough, though, 56% of those looking at getting a second job thought their employers would actually be very supportive. When you talk to the employers, they worry about health and safety and burnout and absenteeism and the focus on their primary job. So there is, but at the same time, they kind of understand that there is a cost of living crisis. And so, they've got a real balancing act to play in this.
Well, if it means that they don't have to pay these people an extra sort of 10 grand and they can pick up the 15 grand, stocking shelves at night, whatever, if they can pick up the extra money somewhere else, then that employer doesn't have to pay them. Then that's probably why they are appreciative that they can look elsewhere and they can, not going to stand in their way. But I just, man, how can people do two jobs for too long? Because the sustainability thing comes in, and
burnouts, it's not sustainable.
One of the big issues. It's not.
Correct. It is. And look, the reality for businesses is we're now seeing a lot of businesses really struggling. And so this idea that they can just keep increasing employees' pay is ludicrous. It's not a never-ending pot of money. And so businesses have had salary hikes for the last 2 years that were unbelievable, like 30% increases. So the cost structures have got out of whack. And so, if they don't heed their costs, their business will go out of business, and their whole staff will be left without a job. So it's not quite that simple as just giving more increases all the time. And I think employees need to understand that.
Yeah, see, this interested me the last few years in a sense that there were all these demands from workers, at the back end of COVID, where inflation was sitting at 7.7% it peaked at one stage. So that means that everything across the board is, almost 8% more expensive in people's lives. You round that up to 10%. People are looking for, sort of up to 10% pay rises. Companies, in the last 2 years, they've had these massive big revenue holes, and we know, I look at our own business and media, massive losses of revenue because of Facebook and, everything. And so you've seen the organisations close up. They just can't afford to even exist. And I wonder if it was almost, we thought it was our right as employees to say, well, we want 10%. But I shut my mouth. My view was we're lucky to have bloody jobs at times,
Well, it's interesting, right? This is one of the reasons we did the survey, is obviously still employees are continuing to ask for pay rises and perhaps not understanding the economic impact that businesses are working in. And when you look at New Zealand as an economy, we're made up substantially of SME businesses. And so little SME businesses owned by mum and dad, that's where there's not the never-ending pot of money. So you really have to be very wary of the financial situation of your company and make wise decisions based on what you've raised with your boss if you're thinking about a pay rise.